Hi, I am Ekamin and this is part 2 of a series I am doing about how strong different types of powers are in Genshin world and their inner workings of it. Can't say Tevet cause some of these powers are not even in Tevet. These powers and how they work may vary from one to the other. Be that it has a different color, different users, different power scaling and different weaknesses. But all of them have a singular origin, and that is the power of the ley line or the colorless energy. My last video on this series was about visions. Check that out if you are interested. Anyway, this time around we'll be exploring the Gnosis, or the chess piece looking thingy that Archons have. Is it just a power amp, or is there more to what it does than meets the eye? Well, watch the video and find out. But before that, hit that like button, and if you haven't already, hitting that subscribe button would be much appreciated. I upload theories and lore videos weekly, so it's a win-win situation. Long before 3000 years ago, godlike beings were chilling in their own separate realms. I call them godlike since the word god is used a bit loosely in Chinese fantasy. Even normal humans can attain godhood just by cultivating like a madman. Becoming an immortal and getting powers similar to what we see from Genshin gods is possible. Adaptive gods like Zhongli and Guizhang lived in their own adaptive realms. Information about the other gods before the Archon War is too vague to say, but it's possible that they also lived in their own separate realms. After the Cataclysm, Kitsune Zaigo got dragged into a different realm. This is just one example. But after some time, these gods came down to Tevet and started building civilizations and building a following under them. 3000 years ago, Celestia, the ruling power of Tevet, opened up 7 seats for 7 gods to ascend to. The information about the selection process is kind of all over the place. But if I have to comprise everything, each region's gods had one element in general, which is that region's element. And when the Archons were chosen, each of the gods had exactly 7 different elements, without having any overlapping. Think about it. If gods cultivated elements in random back then, there is a possibility that at least 2 regions shared the same elemental god. For example, both Natlan and Inazuma could have had a victor that shared the same element. But as we all know, that is not the case. If you look at the gods who fought for the Gnosis, Andreas, Decarabian and Venti all 3 had Anemo as their primary element. In Liyue, Zhongli, Guizhang and Havria had powers of Geo or subcategories of Geo. In Inazuma, information about opponents of Raidens are unknown, but both the Raidens used Electro. This leads me to believe that the Gnosis took the element of that region and not the element of the god who won the war. It's like the Gnosis is saying, even then, the Gnosis required the user to have compassion towards humans, like they had to be legit rulers to get the Gnosis. As with Andreas, who got rejected by the Gnosis because he killed so many humans with his blizzard, making him give it to the wind spirit Venti. Another rule the Gnosis had them follow was that they had to kill or seal their opponents entirely before being crowned as the victor. That's why, again, in Mondstadt, Andreas gave up on his life before transferring it to Barbados. In Liyue, Rexlapus killed most of his enemies and even killed his own allies. After his battle with Guizhang and her death, Rexlapus gave up on killing and started sealing his enemies with his power. But I wonder why they were forced to kill each other. According to Memory of Dust, Guizhang and Rexlapus were close enough that they probably had the opportunity to talk it through, but they fought each other anyway. With this, I always wonder what was so special about the Gnosis that they killed their own loved ones. What was their driving motive that only ended in violence? Even in the case of Raiden Makoto, a similar situation happened. According to the treasured tales of Chokuen Shinkageuchi book, before Makoto received the Electrognosis, Ei sacrificed herself, then only Makoto received the Gnosis. But after she became the Electro Archon, she recreated Ei's body and resurrected her. We have to wonder why Celestia wanted to silence all gods except for the 7 survivors. If I had to take a guess, it would be that if one all-powerful person was the ruler and there was no god left to cause conflict. Let's take Orobashi for example. Some theories say that Orobashi went on a rampage to kill itself in fear of erosion and causing real damage to its own people. Even if that was the case, or it really was eroded and went on a rampage, either way will only shed blood of innocent people. If there was no one to make conflict, there will be no mass bloodshed. The ability everyone probably knows is that Gnosis amplifies the initial power of a god by an unknown value. Zhongli says after giving up on his Gnosis, he lost a significant portion of his power. Therefore, the power amp from the Gnosis is something really strong, if given to the right person. From the calculations I did, only one sounded plausible. From the information I gathered from Venti's power amp after getting the Gnosis, and Zhongli's previous statement. That is, if we take the ability to control an element as a value from 1 to 10 and give it a variable of E and a passive stat bump of S, meaning the stat bump someone gets with the minimum elemental control of 1 and X as the initial power of a god or any other being that receives the Gnosis. Using these variables, I came to a simplest calculation of the power of an Archon with a Gnosis equals to X plus E multiplied by S. If we take an example, a god with an initial power of 500 with 2 elemental control points, and if we assume the passive stat bump of a Gnosis is 100, then the power of the Archon with the Gnosis sums up to 700. But this is just my calculation and could be something far different and complicated. Since we don't have a guidebook like Naruto and Bleach, we'll have to deal with something like this for now. The elemental manipulation abilities are mostly the same as a vision I talked about in my vision potential video, except for Gnosis cranks the power output to 100 or whatever the value from my power equation. But the Gnosis has much more uses than just amping the power of the user. In the epilogue of the Mondstadt Archon quest, Venti explains to us that a Gnosis is an internal magical foci that is much more advanced than a simple vision. In Chinese, Japanese and Korean, the name they use for the Gnosis all translates to the heart of God. This leads me to believe that a Gnosis was a spare organ to an Archon, as I briefly mentioned in this video. And in my Archons vs Hershers video, I came to a conclusion that the Gnosis is like a blueprint for a specific element, drawn by tracing the first-gen Archon's ambition to it. It becomes a part of the Archon and a part of the element itself. That's why the slimes resemble their respective Archon counterparts. The entire fabric of that element was changed to that Archon's will. Raiden said that distributing visions was not her duty, but there are few pieces of information that she is not allowed to say. As I said before, the ambition of the first-gen Archons was imprinted into the Gnosis. This allowed the vision distribution system to have a base on which person had a similar potential to an Archon. Why go so far to do something like this? We all know that erosion is a big part of Archon law. Zhongli and A says that even Archons are subjected to erosion. This means that one day, even if they are immortal, they will die or go berserk. When that happens, there should be someone with similar potential to take over that position or to take them down before they destroy everything. As said by Venti, Zhongli and Yae Miko, Gnosis directly connects to Celestia, making them the pillars that connect Celestia to the mortal realm. A couple of months back, I made a theory about light and dark powers of Genshin world and how Irminsul tree is the light and Celestia is darkness, and it recycles ley line energy. Back then, I thought ley line energy passed through the Gnosis from the Irminsul tree to Celestia back and forth. But now I understand that the flow of the recycled energy goes only from Celestia to Irminsul tree through the Gnosis. For those who don't know what tree this is, It's the tree that holds the world of Genshin together. This is how it goes. White energy starts from Irminsul tree. Using the ley line network, it goes through every living being in the world. Then the power stored within them and their memories and souls of the dead travel to Celestia or heaven through the network and get sorted out from ascended Alazines and normal humans. There the energy gets recycled and through the Gnosis travels back to Earth or Irminsul tree. While going through the Gnosis, it also sorts the memories of Alazine candidates, and if it finds a suitable person, it grants a vision to them. Again, to solidify this theory, Kunjun or Ashdaha's yin counterpart notices Morax is missing his Gnosis. Ashdaha is an elemental being that lives entirely from the ley line energy. Therefore, he notices even the simplest changes to the network. So, the Gnosis is essentially a scanner in the pipeline or the pipeline itself that connects Celestia and Teyvat. This might also explain why Celestia doesn't like bloodshed in Teyvat. If the memories they are collecting through the network die prematurely with not so good emotional condition, it's essentially a bad apple, right? Another ability Gnosis possesses is creating physical bodies called exuvia in any way they like. Venti created a similar vessel to the Nameless Bard. Morax had a dragon exuvia that fell down during the Archon quest, and his latest exuvia as Zhongli. And as I previously said about how Makoto created a new body for A that is also an exuvia. But don't mix this up with Raiden Shogun Puppet and Scaramouche. They are not exuvia, they are just puppets created by technology similar to Magokenki, but much advanced. So, if Scaramouche managed to use the Gnosis, it might backfire. Finally, this is the most important power a Gnosis grants, and probably is the reason you clicked on this video. I talked about this in this video a bit before, but take this with a grain of salt because I could be hitting way off the mark. You all know that all 7 Archons have 7 different ambitions, right? And they will stay true to that ambition with whatever it takes, right? What if all the gods were fighting to take hold of this one ability? I'm talking about bending the very fabric of reality. Not the whole thing like the Infinity Stones though, but a portion of reality. The specific domain of the reality they are a god of. For example, Venti is the god of freedom and Zhongli is the god of contracts. What if the Gnosis allowed the user to have full authority over that part of reality? Now they have something to fight against their own. Venti got his Gnosis by, let's say, pure coincidence. But still, for example, in Vanessa's cell, he just walked right in and chatted with her without a care in the world. There might be limitations to this ability due to lack of experience and other factors. But bending reality is something. But there is a catch. The reality they can bend is limited to the first gen Archon's ambition. The ambition that got imprinted into the Gnosis. As I said in my Archons vs Hershers video, Raiden Makoto's way of eternity is completely opposite from A's perception of eternity, as they are light and dark. So the Gnosis that bends the wrong kind of eternity was useless to her. And since most wars are already over after Orobashi incident, she had no use for the power amp either. Since she had given up on most of things after countless losses, the Gnosis was just a chess piece, but she knew the risk of someone misusing it. That's why she gave it to Yae Miko, and well, due to the slime similarity, the moment they got their Gnosis, the very nature of the element changed. This is also a kind of altering reality. On that note, I end my observations on the Gnosis. This time around, I am more confident about this theory. But for good measures, take any theory I discussed here only as just theories and speculations for entertainment. But hey, this is just a theory in a random dude's head on the internet. If you enjoyed the video, smash that like button. Comment down anything you notice suspicious about the Gnosis. Next up on this series will most likely be the Delusion. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that one when that comes out. As always, thanks for watching, and until next time, let your imaginations run wild.